Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into a subject that, well, a lot of successful people in South Africa tend to ignore until it's way too late.
The financial earthquake.
Exactly, the financial earthquake of a marriage ending. And this isn't about markets or economics. This is about the cold, hard, legal mechanics of divorce. How the assets you spent your entire life building can be legally exposed, divided, or frankly just destroyed if they aren't structured the right way from the start.
And that's our mission today. We are focusing strictly on those financial mechanics. This isn't about the emotion of it all. It's about the technical reality of South African law.
Right.
And if you're a business owner, an investor, or anyone building significant wealth, listening to this isn't pessimism. It is, I would argue, the most essential form of financial prudence you can have.
I agree completely. So our objective is clear. We're going to dissect the risks that are buried deep inside South Africa's marital regimes. And then we're going to present the definitive solution. We'll walk you through how sophisticated investors use trust and company structures to build what we're calling an asset protection fortress.
A fortress to safeguard their business and, of course, their family's future.
Okay, let's unpack this. We should probably start where most people start, often completely by accident, and that's marrying in community of property.
It's the default. That's the key word. If you don't sign a specific contract before you get married, this is what you get automatically.
And that automatic part is the trap, isn't it?
It's the root of the risk. It means immediate, total financial commingling. It's like pouring all your wealth, all your future earnings, even your debts, into one single pot that's jointly owned.
And the really terrifying part is what happens when that relationship ends.
It's an absolute 50-50 split.
50-50, regardless of who brought what in.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if one spouse brought in 90% of the assets or built 100% of the wealth during the marriage. The law just splits that final pot in half.
For an entrepreneur, that must be just devastating.
It is the ultimate vulnerability. We see this shock all the time. Imagine you start a business from scratch. You put in 18 years of 12-hour days.
Your whole life's work.
And that whole company is now a major asset of the joint estate. It means your business can suddenly become half-owned by a spouse who maybe never even set foot in the office. The law sees all contributions as equal, but the financial outcome can be catastrophic.
It's a huge trap.
Yeah.
So, okay, financially savvy people try to avoid that with a contract. That brings us to the more popular, but, well, still fundamentally risky option, the accrual system.
Right. The accrual system is a step up, for sure. It forces you to think ahead. You have to sign an annuptial contract, an ANC.
And that keeps your premarital assets separate.
It does. Everything you brought into the marriage, plus anything you inherit or get as a donation during the marriage, that all remains exclusively yours. On the surface, it sounds like total protection.
But there's a catch, a big one.
A very insidious catch. It's not really about protecting your assets. It's about what happens to the growth of your assets.
So the law compares the growth, the accrual of both estates during the marriage.
Precisely. And if one estate grew a lot more than the other, the person with the bigger growth has to share half of the difference.
Half the difference. Okay, let's use that example from the sources. Sipho and Namsa.
A perfect and very common scenario. Sipho's estate, maybe through his business, grew by a huge R$14.5 million during their marriage.
And Namsa's estate, maybe she focused on raising the family or had a less lucrative career. It grew by R$2.8 million.
Right, so the difference in their growth is R$11.7 million.
And Sipho has to pay Namsa half of that.
Half of that. A cash payment of R$5.85 million. Now, Sipho might be asset rich, but cash poor. His money is all tied up in his business, in property developments.
But he still has to find R$5.85 million in cash. Now.
Immediately. It forces the same kind of disastrous liquidation we see with community of property. It just proves that even a contract isn't a perfect shield for significant wealth.
And this is where it gets really scary. Because divorce doesn't just divide wealth. The whole process, the legal and market process, it actively destroys it.
Yes.
We're talking about millions of rands that just evaporate. They vanish into the friction of the process. Neither person gets it.
This is the practical reality that financial plans just don't account for. Our sources point to 4 main ways this destruction happens. The first one is maybe the most obvious: forced liquidation at the worst possible time.
So the court orders a division,
Yeah.
and you have to sell assets to get the cash. And you have to sell now no matter what the market is doing.
Exactly. Imagine the divorce happens during a recession, which, let's be honest, is often when marriages are under the most strain.
Right.
That R20 million property portfolio you have might only get you R16 million in a forced sale.
So that's 4 million rand.
hmm
Just gone. It doesn't go to the ex-spouse. It just disappears into a bad market.
It's a net loss to the entire estate. And then on top of that loss, you start pouring money into the legal fees.
The black hole.
It really is. Legal costs that compound the damage. High asset divorces are incredibly expensive. You need forensic accountants, actuaries, specialized lawyers, all on high hourly rates.
And that can easily be, what, a couple of million rand per person?
Easily. We've seen costs exceed R2 million per party. So that's a combined R4 million or more coming directly out of the very assets you're fighting over. You both get poorer just by arguing.
And all this time, what's happening to the actual business?
It's being disrupted. That's the third factor, business disruption. The second a divorce starts, instability creeps in. Employees start whispering, your competitors start to sense a weakness.
The bank might get nervous about your credit lines.
Absolutely. The owner's focus is gone, their energy is drained, and the value of the business itself takes a massive hit. The engine of your wealth just stalls out.
And finally, there's always the tax man.
The tax man always gets his cut. Tax consequences are the silent killer here. When you have to transfer large assets, like property or shares, to equalize the division.
That can trigger capital gains tax.
Capital gains tax, transfer duty on property. It's another layer of friction, another chunk of wealth that just evaporates before anyone can use it.
We saw this entire tragic mess play out in that inheritance trap story, David. He inherited R8 million from his father.
A clear, separate, generational pool of wealth, but he was married in community of property.
So that R8 million just flowed straight into the joint pot.
The second it was commingled, its legal identity changed. So when he and his wife, Sarah, divorced a few years later, that R8 million was part of the 50-50 split.
She walked away with R4 million of his father's life savings.
Money that was never intended for her. It became divorce settlement funding, all because of a default legal status that was never addressed.
So this makes it crystal clear. If contracts like an ANC can still lead to these huge transfers and the process itself destroys wealth, what is the ultimate protection? What's the real answer for wealth builders in South Africa?
Well, all the technical sources point in one direction. Proactive, strategic trust structures.
A trust. Now, this isn't just another document, is it? It's a completely different way of thinking about ownership.
It's a fundamental shift. A trust is a legal arrangement where you, the founder, transfer your assets to trustees, and those trustees manage them for the long-term benefit of your chosen beneficiaries.
Okay, so if I put my R10 million property portfolio into a trust, do I still own it? Who actually owns it?
And that is the absolute core of it. The magic is the separation of ownership. Once those assets are legally in the trust, they are no longer owned by you personally.
The trustees own them.
The trustees own them, but in their capacity as fiduciaries. This separation is the shield. It protects that wealth from your personal creditors, personal liabilities, and, crucially, from a marital estate division.
That is incredibly powerful. And beyond just divorce protection, what are the other big advantages for high net worth individuals in SA?
The structural benefits are huge. There's asset protection, which we've been talking about, but there's also significant tax efficiency, especially for minimizing estate duty when you pass away. It allows for wealth preservation across generations and, very importantly, business succession planning. The business can continue seamlessly, no matter what happens in your personal life.
The sources call this whole integrated strategy building an asset protection fortress. That sounds like more than just putting your house in a trust. How does that mechanism actually work?
The fortress is all about complete segregation. You create a structure where your trust owns the valuable long-term assets, the crown jewels, your property, your intellectual property, your investments. That's the protected legacy.
And the day-to-day business.
Your operating company runs the day-to-day. It carries all the commercial risk, but it holds very few fixed assets.
I see. So if the company gets sued or hits a rough patch, the truly valuable assets, the buildings, the brand, the investments, they're all safe.
They're out of reach because they're legally owned by the trust, not by the business and not by you. You keep control of the operation, but you've built a firewall between your long-term wealth and your day-to-day risk.
That sounds almost too good to be true. I know the South African courts are getting very good at piercing weak structures. What's the critical catch? How do you make sure the fortress doesn't just crumble?
This is the most important part. The protection only works if the trust is genuine. The courts have this alter ego doctrine. If they see that you're just using the trust as your personal piggy bank,
Treating the assets as if they're still yours.
they will completely disregard the trust structure, and all those assets become exposed again.
So what does a genuine trust look like in practice? What do you need to do?
It demands real separation of control. You must have an independent trustee who actually exercises their mind and their duty. They can't just be a rubber stamp. You need perfect documentation, annual resolutions, and you can't, for example, pay for your groceries directly from the trust bank account. Any sign that it's just your alter ego, and the whole fortress fails.
The complexity here is obviously immense. When you start hearing that a trust's retained income is taxed at 45% and capital gains tax can be 36%, you're clearly in territory where a generic off-the-shelf solution is just dangerous.
It is. This is where expertise becomes non-negotiable. Generic information is great for raising awareness of the problem, but it can't give you the personalized, legally sound solution.
You need someone who gets the whole picture. SARS compliance, the master of the high court, the needs of the business.
Exactly. Our sources pointed to the need for a specialist, someone like Lumka Sturman, who is a trust consultant and asset protection specialist. The reason you work with a consultant in this space is that they focus on the entire holistic design and its long-term health.
Not just the set of paperwork.
Or the annual tax return. Her value is in providing expert guidance and really simplified solutions. She takes all this terrifying jargon, like the alter ego risk, and translates it into a clear, actionable strategy.
That sounds like the complete opposite of the high-stress, high-risk world we've been describing. It sounds like clarity and confidence.
That's her mission, to educate and then provide a personalized strategy. She stresses the critical compliance details, like the legal requirement to have at least one independent trustee for a family trust. That's not optional. It's essential to prove the impartiality the courts are looking for.
So her services really reflect that deep focus. It's not just one thing. It's everything from a foundation audit, which checks your existing structures for flaws,
All the way to the asset protection blueprint session, which gives you that custom step-by-step plan for your own fortress.
and then there's the full asset protection fortress setup itself.
Yes, that's the end-to-end service. It includes company restructuring, setting up the asset holding entities, IP protection, and then the ongoing annual maintenance to make sure it all stays compliant with SARS and the law for decades to come. It's proactive management.
So the big takeaway here is that when you succeed, your wealth just amplifies your risk.
It absolutely does. The vulnerabilities of being a high net worth individual are unique. You have complex assets, business disputes, high maintenance obligations. All of it requires structural fortification, and that protection has to happen before the storm.
It has to be done while relationships are strong.
And while you have the clear mind to implement a genuine, non-contestable trust structure.
So what does this all really mean for you listening right now? We've seen that ignoring these risks could literally cost you half of everything you own, not to mention the wealth that just gets destroyed by fees and forced sales. The information we've covered is that crucial first step, but a personalized strategy is the vital next one.
You cannot afford to guess here.
To start that conversation, to assess your own risk, and to begin building your own asset protection fortress with these strategic trust and company structures, you can connect directly with the specialist we've discussed, Lumka Sturman. Her website is www.lumkasturman.com.
And think about this. Your wealth took years of sacrifice and discipline to build. The irony is that protecting it, securing your family's future against these specific South African legal and financial risks, it just takes one focused conversation with a specialist who understands structure. And that conversation is available to you now.